hello. Today we have the fabulous Tolani. She is a dynamic beauty and lifestyle full-time content creator and real estate investor based in Houston, Texas, and also a mother of two wonderful girls. I know I have so much fun watching your content. So thank you so much, Tolani, for being here today for the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Me too. Honestly, Tolani, we were kind of talking a little bit before, but so we both used to work for an oil and gas company, used to work for Chevron. And I remember right when I was thinking of quitting, I found your TikTok because I'd been following you for a few years, but I found your TikTok and I didn't realize you worked for Chevron. And I was like, holy crap, this is literally the universe telling me that I'm supposed to quit now. There's an example right there for me.
I know.
So I'm so glad that you posted all about it because I don't think you understand how much confidence that gave me to take the leap.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love to hear that.
Oh, amazing. Well, so Tolani, before all of the content creation, the real estate investing, who were you? What did you do? Where did you come from?
So, like you said, I used to work at Chevron. But funny enough, I actually started creating content well before I started working full-time as an engineer. So my background is I studied chemical engineering. I started working as a petroleum engineer back in I don't want to date myself, but 2013, I believe, is when I started. And so, all through college, I had my YouTube channel. I was already creating content. Back then it wasn't like a thing to be a content creator. That word did not even really exist. Honestly, it was just like a hobby of sharing hair tips, tutorials, and things like that in the beauty space. But also I used to do videos about engineering, how to, prep for an interview and how to land internship, just because that was what I was going through at this time. And I've always kind of been that way in terms of just sharing what my current situation is, whether it's here, whether it's my life and things like that. So that's kind of where I started. Obviously, I started working at Chevron, like you mentioned. I did that for about 9 years. And I know we'll probably talk a little bit down the line of how I actually pivoted, but definitely was doing both for a very long time, doing the content creation, making content, and then also working as a full-time engineer.
No, that's awesome. So why did you even decide to go into engineering? What made you go down that route? That route.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say just my background. My dad was an engineer. I grew up as an oil kid. So we used to move every 2 to 3 years between Nigeria and here in the States. And so I just kind of was just exposed to oil and gas from obviously a very, very young age. And also being, from Nigeria, that's one of the major industries, in that country. So it's kind of what you're almost programmed, not programmed, but kind of just what you're exposed to. And then of course, with my dad being an engineer, that was kind of I like the fact that he actually, to be very honest, one of the main things I was I definitely want to be an engineer is just because I would see how much he would travel. And I've always, always loved traveling. And I was just this is the perfect, career to go into. I'm good at math. I really love science. I truly, truly, really enjoy math and science. I know it's weird, but I really did truly enjoy it. So I was this is perfect. I'm going to do engineering. I'm going to get to travel. Although it didn't quite work out that way with the traveling.
No, I'm literally dying at all of your responses right now because this is legitimately me to a T. I grew up as an oil and gas kid, grew around. My parents are originally from Angola, so also West Africa. Yeah, so grew up traveling around as a kid. I lived in Brazil, was born in the UK, moved to Houston, all of this stuff. So I'm oh my gosh, yeah, I'm good at math and science. I like math and science. This is going to be perfect. Went into chemical engineering. No, it was not that though. It was very much not that. I traveled to Covington, Louisiana, to the oil and gas platforms. I'm this is not the life I was expecting.
Yep. I relate. Everything you said is me.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, literally. And it's so funny because I see this common trait with anyone, especially when I see, young women going into real estate investing or going into content creation from engineering. Like, it's literally the exact same story.
I'm not surprised, honestly.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I guess what made you start to really like take content creation more seriously and kind of, do both at the same time and even completely pivot out of it?
Yeah. So like I said, I was doing it purely out of hobby. And then, it started becoming exciting when I started realizing like, oh, I can, well, first of all, I started off with just gifting, like brands would reach out and say, hey, we want to give you this whole hair product line that we just released. And we want you to, just test it out. And then from there, it became, oh, we want you to make a video about this in exchange for content. And then from there, it kind of grew to, oh, we'll pay you a certain amount if you post this picture and things like that. And at the same time, I started meeting like other content creators, right? And some of them were already really successful in what they were doing, getting brand deals. This is like back in like 2015-ish, 2016, when it was really like the whole influencer marketing really started to like kick up a notch with content creators specifically. And so that really inspired me, and just kind of just getting more knowledge as to like the potential, number one, for how much you can make as a content creator, but also just like the flexibility that it gives you, just with anything with entrepreneurship and having your own business. I was like, I think this is what I want to do, because not only, the monetary aspect of it, but I already enjoy doing it, right? I've been doing it before I even knew I could get paid from it.
Yeah, no, I love that too, because so many people tell me like they want to get started in content creation, and it's like they don't realize, if you don't actually enjoy doing it, how much work it's going to feel like. Because I'm kind of the same. I've been posting forever. Like, I've been posting my travels since forever before. Yeah. Like, Instagram was like an Instagram app. Like, I've always been doing. So it's not a chore for me. It's something like I actually enjoy doing.
You actually love doing.
And like, right. And like, when people get into it, they're like, oh, wow, I did not realize how much work this actually was, because it is. Well, and it's funny because so now you have like a club or like a membership where you are teaching content creators now. So I guess tell me a little bit about that and how that developed, especially like throughout your content creation journey, and then we'll go into the real estate stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That good. First of all, I just want to hit on what you said about like, people not realizing how much work goes into content creation. One thing that always like surprise people when I tell them is like, I definitely work more, probably 3 or 4 times more than I did working as an engineer, in oil and gas, working as a petroleum engineer. Like, yeah, we would have some like, intense periods. For the most part, I work way more than I used to, when I was working that job. So, but one of the things that, led me to creating this community of creators was exactly that. Just number one, the misconception of what actually goes into content creation, but also like, I feel like I kind of had like a unique position in terms of like starting when I did, when it really wasn't a career or really wasn't like a business opportunity. And so along the way, I was able to just learn so much and make so many mistakes that I'm now seeing like, people who are just starting out, starting to make those same mistakes. And just over time, I kind of already started like mentoring, people that would come and ask me questions like, hey, what should I charge for this? Oh, I want to get into the space. Like, can you give me some advice? And so I was like, I really want to make something that was, that I could kind of, mentor more than one people, like kind of scale, the mentorship and just giving people advice on like how to really make this a business. Because that's the one, that's like the first mindset shift I feel like as a content creator you have to make, is like the shift from like, this is a hobby, I'm just doing this for fun, to like, this is an actual business. And so in my community, which is called the Creator Success Club, by the way, we have, events where I'm talking about brand partnerships, I have Q&A sessions. We're talking about diversifying your income, which is something that I'm so passionate about. We'll talk about investing later, but even in the content creation space, there's so many ways to diversify, and people only usually focus on brand partnerships, how to land brand deals, but that's honestly not the most sustainable approach and not the most like lucrative, if from being honest. So we talk a lot about that. I do one-on-one sessions with some of our members. And we just have like a nice supportive community. Right now, we're doing a consistency challenge where I'm challenging everyone to post consistent, not in a crazy, non-sustainable way, but like, 3 to 4 times a week, and then repurposing your content. So we're going through that right now. It's all through the month of June. And it's just really been a fun, and actually really rewarding, community. And just everything has just been really, really fulfilling. And I just love like hearing some of our members win. Like we had a member, land their first brand deal. We also had a member like start working their affiliate marketing and growing that part of their business. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of.
No, I love that. And it's so funny because you mentioned before how you would share about how you got your engineering job and the interviews. And you can tell like from an early age, right? You were already sharing your knowledge and trying to teach people and helping people. So it's like just a like classic, progression to get into where you are now, which is wonderful.
Yes, I actually never even put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, you're right.
I know. And it's similar for me too, because even when I was younger, like I would always mentor like young women getting into STEM. And it's like so funny because now I have like my community, which is helping young women get into real estate investing. And it all just kind of plays into it.
Yeah. No. Interesting.
Oh my gosh. So I guess what is, just out of curiosity, like what's a common mistake that you do see a lot of people make, especially in today's day and age in social media and content creation?
So number one, just not having like strategy when it comes to creating content. People just see the content and like, oh, this is cool. Oh, I like the way this creator does this, or oh, this creator is so talented. Like there's a lot of talent that goes into it. There's a lot of, creativity that goes into it, but there's also a lot of strategy that goes into like your favorite creator. Probably, the content that they're making, a lot of the time, they're not just like, some of them are, but most times they're not just like going off of vibes, which is what I used to be honest. Like, oh, I just feel like doing this today. Oh, I feel like doing this today. I feel like, especially the state that we are in right now, because another thing is this space has evolved so much, and every year it changes and changes and changes. But we're definitely at a space where there's a lot of creators, right? And so now you really have to be strategic in what you're posting. Let's say you want to get brand deals, right? Are you posting things that brands, care about? Like, are you posting products? If you want to, let's say you want to work with like a food brand, right? But you're only posting like your kids or like makeup videos. Right. How are you going to get the, attention of that food brand if you're not posting in alignment to that brand? So things like that, where like people just feel like, oh, if I have a lot of followers, the brands are going to find me. But that's not the case anymore, because a lot of people have a lot of followers now, right? So you have to be very strategic in the way you position your content. That's probably like the number one thing I see that people, make mistakes on.
Yeah, no, that's so fair. And it's so funny because I have gotten like so much more strategic about my content as well. Because before I was like, I'm posting my travels, I'm posting whatever. I'm like, okay, what's the actual purpose behind this? It's like, why are we doing this? What is the end goal? Right? Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Okay, so I guess pivoting just a little bit now. So I love it because you and your husband are both real estate investors as well. And I think that was another thing where I was like, oh my gosh, the universe is aligning. So tell me about how you two got started investing in real estate, and like how, you were talking about diversification of income, which I also think is so freaking important. But yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your investing journey.
Yes. So I would say for our first investment, well, we bought our first home when we got married, right? So that was technically our first like property. But in terms of like starting with, investment properties, I remember there was a time, which you're probably very familiar with, oil and gas, obviously ups and downs, layoffs here, another 2 years, like it was just very apparent that like, hey, this engineer, because he's an engineer too, and he also works in the oil and gas industry. And I feel like growing up and just maybe even being in college, I wasn't really aware as to how volatile the oil and gas industry was. And so starting with my career and him too, starting his career, we quickly realized like, oh, this is actually not a sure thing. Like we could get dropped at any moment. And so that was kind of like that was kind of like the moment. I think it was around 2015, 2016.
Yep. I remember it so clearly.
Oh yeah. That was when we were like, okay, we really have to figure out, other streams of income. And so with investing, to be honest, I'll even say like, just my parents, like both my parents, like, growing up, they've always been, that's like they invest in real estate in Nigeria. So I was kind of like exposed to it, and they would kind of tell me, why they were doing certain things. But to be honest, it didn't really click for me until much later. So I remember there was a newer community, East Downtown in Houston area. And I just kind of kept hearing so many things about, oh, this is going to be the new area. This is going to be an upcoming spot. And like people really should start investing. And one of my friends was actually a real estate agent at that time. And she also kind of like, advised me like, oh, if you want to invest, this is like a good place to invest. So I talked to my husband about it. And then we made our first like investment property in Edo, which we still have till today. And it did appreciate quite a bit, actually. So
because Edo was popping.
Yeah, that was a great first choice. And so that's kind of how we started. And then from there, my husband ended up getting his real estate license. Now he's a real estate broker. And my husband, he is like a finance nerd. Like when you talk about someone who's like obsessed with like finance and economics, like he grew, I feel like it probably started from, the real estate investing and, doing a lot of research in that space that led to like him being interested in just economics in general and, even Bitcoin and things like that. So he really like went full force in that trajectory of like investing and learning all that. And I actually wanted to mention, I have the Creator Success Club as a community for creators, but we also have the Finance Hub. And actually all of them, if you're a member of the Creator Success Club, you have access to the Finance Hub. And so the Finance Hub is kind of like his baby. Like I mentioned, he's really into like finance and investing and all that kind of stuff. So that in that community, we're sharing, our tips and how we got started. We're hosting events, and just trying to like bring people along, in our journey and just like teach people financial literacy and, especially people who are in our community, right? I feel like mentorship is so like needed in our space of just seeing people who look like you, doing things, especially in spaces that, you're not used to seeing them. So yeah, I think I rambled.
No, for sure. I mean, it kind of goes back to like, one of the things that really helped me like take the leap was seeing someone just like me who'd done it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And it's just so important to surround yourself because it helps just like, I'm really big into just being around expanders lately, right? Like being around other people who like break those barriers and just make you believe in yourself and your abilities to do it too.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Also, so something that I really love is that both of you kind of had side hustles all throughout this time while you were doing engineering. Because I have so many people come to me and they're like, how do you have enough money to do this? And it's like, you got to work. You got to put the time and effort. Because I also got my real estate license while I was an engineer. So I was like doing real estate on the side. And then I was, doing some content creation on the side. It's like every money that I had, I'm like, we're throwing that into a property.
That's literally what we did, honestly. That was how right now we started obviously back then with the Edo property. And now we have 18 rental units. And honestly, that is exactly what we did. The time I was still working with Chevron, we'd get bonuses, right? And then I was also getting, money on the side from being a content creator, because I was, doing that at the same time as my engineering job. And I was saving all of that as well. And my husband, like he was real estate agent. He was saving all the money from his deals, from his real estate deals, plus the bonuses that he would get at work. And we were literally putting everything into reinvesting and buying properties and trying to grow our real estate portfolio.
No, I love that. So I guess, you bought that first property, which was your primary residence. How did you get from like that first property to now 18 properties?
Yes.
Because, a lot of people see that and their minds are just kind of blown.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
Yeah. And so exactly like what I said. So, we started with our primary residence, then we got into our first investment property. And then from there, we kind of figured, we had an idea of like, okay, this is how much we need to be saving in order to, make these deposits on, future real estate investments. And so from our bonuses from work, from my extra money that I was getting, as a content creator working with brands, I was saving 100% of that and putting that back into real estate, to the next real estate property that we wanted to purchase. Same with my husband, right? He was a realtor helping people, get properties. And so from the commission he was getting from that, he was saving 100% of that, putting it back into, purchasing that next investment property. And so literally, as our side businesses started to scale, we also were able to scale, buying 2 properties or buying a multi-unit property. And so I would say what helped us scale even like quicker from like the 0 to 18 was buying, we have 3 multi-unit properties. Like our largest one is 6 units. So, over time we were able to like make those bigger investments in those properties.
No, I love that. I know I'm a big fan of the small multifamily. I think it's just such a hack, right? And like to have, and it's kind of, it goes back to that multiple streams of income, right? And I wonder too, if that comes from like, the immigrant mentality of like needing stability, right?
Oh, yeah. I think
like
so.
That's not like because I have a couple of single families and I'm like, I just don't like that it's like one source of income. Like I like having the multiple streams.
After we got the first one we got was 3. And then from then, I don't think we never went back to just buying single family homes. We just kept doing the multi-family. Like, yeah, this makes a lot more sense.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so I guess when you were making that transition from full-time engineer to now full-time content creator, like what was that point for you where you're like, okay, I think this is gonna work and we're gonna go full in?
So for me, I'll be very honest, like I had it in my mind, like, okay, I want to do this full-time probably for about 4 years before I actually went, full-time as a content creator. And again, this was like triggered by all those layoffs that were happening. And I was like, I don't really want to stick around for the next round of layoffs, which ended up happening again. And thankfully at that point, I still didn't get let go, surprisingly. Although at that point I was like, well, if y'all gonna let me go, that would be an easy way out. Literally, I remember the last layoff before I actually left, I was thinking like, it wouldn't be too bad if it would be an easy way for me to make that decision. But thankfully I didn't. But, so, I started 4 years. In my mind, I was like, I had in my mind that like, okay, I'm going to work for, however, probably a few more years before I make the leap, because I was like, I really want to be comfortable when I make that leap. I want to have a certain amount. Actually, me and my husband had a number of how many properties we would need to have for me to like be comfortably leave. So that was also in mind. And then on my content creation side, I wanted to be making 6 figures before I left. And then I also wanted to have more structure around my content creation business as well. So when all those things aligned, then I literally had no excuse. I was like, okay, well, we've gotten to the number of rental units that we want. I've gotten to my, how much I want to be making as a content creator. And then I had my kids, right? And I knew I wasn't going to have any more kids. So I was like, yeah, I think this is time. And so I finally made that decision, end of 2021, like December. I remember I submitted my, was it letter of resignation or whatever? December, right before Christmas, December of 2021. And then, never looked back.
As you know, I've been nomading for 2 years now, and I've been travel hacking for like a decade. And I am finally coming out with an awesome new guide called the Jet Set and Invest Playbook, where I am putting together all of my travel hacking knowledge and letting you peek behind the curtains on exactly how I've traveled to over 50 countries. And in the process, I've actually saved and made tens of thousands of dollars. I think we actually tallied up the last year, and we're above $50,000 saved and made through the strategies that I am putting in this playbook. Now, the Jet Set and Invest Playbook is the ultimate guide on how to become a digital nomad, use your home as your income stream, travel hack using credit card points, and fund your travel with ease. And the cool thing is that you don't even need to own real estate yet to leverage a lot of the tools that I'm putting in this guide. So if you're interested in getting on the waitlist for it and getting the
absolute best price that it's literally ever going to be, either DM me the word jet set on Instagram or click the link of the show notes in this podcast and you'll be the first to know when it releases. And make sure to get on it quick because it is only going to be available for a limited time. So hurry up, peeps. Okay, now let's dive back into the show.
I love that. No, and it's so funny because I remember when layoffs were happening as well. And I was actually because I ended up going to get my graduate degree. And then so I started working full time in 2019. And it's like next year was COVID. It was the next round of layoffs. Gosh. And I remember I was too early. Like I'd only been with the company full time for less than a year. So I wasn't considered. And I was like, damn it. I was like, this would have been a solid, I would give myself up as tribute at that point. Take a package and go.
That's kind of how I felt too. I was like,
oh my gosh. That's so, one, it's so fun because I don't know if you saw this, but I remember a lot of my coworkers who were like, planning on retiring soon were like, well, yes, I can't retire for another couple of years because, their 401ks went down. And I'm like, guys, we cannot be dependent on just that one source of income for retirement. Like,
honestly. And I don't want to think about it. I'm just like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I guess what's been the biggest shift for you from being a W-2 employee to now being a full-time entrepreneur?
The biggest shift. So like I said, obviously working more, but even though I do work more, I will say that how about this? One of the misconception that I think a lot of people had, and even me too, to a certain extent, I thought that I would have more time. And technically, it's not that you have more time, you just have more flexibility with your time. Mm-hmm. And so those are two completely different things. And so, I'm way more flexible more time. I don't have to report to work from this time to this time, right? But I still have to work, the amount of hours to get what I need to get done. But I'm just more able to move things around. And it's really been helpful with, having kids. Like, honestly, me and my husband always say, we don't even really know how we would have been able to really do a lot of the things that we ended up doing if I still had my 9 to 5 and I didn't have that flexibility. Because just with kids, they were, especially during 2020, 2021, they would call us every other day. Oh, your kid just coughed wrong. You need to pick up. Oh, she blinked too hard. It was every small they would be calling you to come pick up your kids. And I was just like, there's absolutely no way I could have done this if I was still working, my 9 to 5. Somebody's job or career would have had to kind of suffer, you know what I mean? So that, the time flexibility has been very, very key, but also just balancing, not working too much, especially as a content creator. You can literally work 24 hours a day. And I see a lot of people do it and it leads to burnout. Luckily, I haven't had extreme. I've been close to burnout, but I haven't really burnt out. I've seen a lot of my peers do. So it's a balance, right? Of knowing when to stop, because there's always so much you can do. When you're working for yourself, there's just so much more you can do, right? There's no one telling you, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z to get to this goal. You're kind of figuring it out for yourself, and you're always trying to try new things and always trying to, re-strategize. There's just always more to do. And you have to realize and figure out when to stop and when to say, okay, I've done enough for today.
Yeah. And I feel like it also just kind of depends on your goals with your business too, right? And because I think it's for the first time, you are in full control over what happens, right? Yep. Which is kind of scary at first. You're like, oh, so if I literally do nothing, we don't make any money.
Exactly.
but then it's also okay, what's your enough number, right? And this is, it changes during different seasons, different parts of your time, life and all of that. But also just, I think for me, was realizing that I can actually do things in alignment, because I felt in corporate, you just had to do it. There was no question. You just do the work. You like it, you don't like it, it doesn't matter. Whereas now I have the ability to say, I don't like doing it that way. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to find a way that works for me.
Yes.
And I think that's like the beauty of it. But yeah, it does come with like, I almost reached burnout for the first time last month. And I was like, Olivia, hold up. Wait. Like, we did not do this to go back into burnout. We did this to do life on our own terms, in our own way. And that's why I was like, there we go.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I actually had to check myself on the same thing you said. Like, I was like, I was getting to a point where I was really, especially with launching this community and everything, like it was just so busy. And I found that like, one of the things I like about working for myself is like, oh, I can just like step out and like hang out with my kids whenever I wanted, or like I can spend more time with them. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm not spending as much time as I used to. And I'm like, what was the whole purpose of this if I can't spend more time, with my kids? So that was definitely like, okay, I need to like figure out, different systems and things to like free up my time a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so is your husband, does he still work full time as an engineer as well? I guess and this is this is something I like to bring up as well, because some people kind of think like you become a real estate investor, you become a content creator, it's that and nothing else. Like you've got to quit your job, you've got to go all in. So I guess tell me a little bit about like his decision to kind of stay in his corporate job right now.
So for him, he truly just loves what he does. He's kind of gotten to a point where he, he's in like, I would say more of like the management type roles. And so he also has way more flexibility with his time than he did before when he was, starting out in his career. And so he's been able to kind of have a really good balance of, doing what he loves, with the investing and teaching others how to invest and also working his regular job. So I think for him, he really actually, it's like for me, to be honest, I got to a point where I was like, I don't like this anymore. Yeah, I'm not enjoying this role that I was in. Because another thing for all the layoffs, right, that I was, the first one I was like, I wasn't affected, like I was like safe or whatever. And so, but with that, like I was just given a role. Like I didn't have a choice in the role that I was given. And then the same thing for the second time around, like you're just given roles. Like you don't really have the choice in the matter of picking your roles. So I got into roles I just did not enjoy at all. Like it was like dreadful. And so with him though, he's been lucky to have roles that he actually enjoys.
Yeah. No, that's huge. Because I will say, like, if I had still been with my previous boss and in my previous job, I don't know if I would have quit right when I did, because I was like, I'd like automated my job. I was, barely work. I could do a lot of things on the side. And I think for me, it was like the transition back into the office. That's what really got me, because then it was so much harder to do real estate. It was so much harder to do all these other side projects. And I was like, okay, this is actually starting to hinder like my life and the things I really want to do. And this is, I think it's time.
No, for real, that flexibility is so important. I wish more employers would like consider that, because I feel like we're at a stage in just, life where like people value like having just like one, a lot of people have side hustles now, right? Like side hustles is just part in this economy, especially like people have to have multiple ways of getting income. And I really hope that like companies just like accept that and really allow for like work-life balance, because honestly, I think that's also one of the reasons why my husband is able to like still enjoy what he's doing, is really that key thing of time flexibility. Like he's working from home today, you know what I mean? Like he can leave work at a certain time or a lot earlier than he used to, because he has that like flexibility with his time. So yeah, that's really key, honestly.
Yeah. And I think a lot of employers are still just kind of stuck in that old mindset where like, a lot of people they were able to live off of one source of income. Like that is just not the case anymore. Like most families have both the husband and the wife there, or both partners are working, and then they have an extra side hustle, because life is expensive. Like I'm looking at property. I just recently moved to Colorado, looking at properties here. I'm like, how do people like afford, if they don't have a 6-figure income, or if they don't have extra side hustles, like how are they affording life?
No, my husband asks that question all the time. Like, how are people surviving? Like, we just don't understand.
Well, and I remember even getting like my income from Chevron, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be making 6 figures. This is going to be great. And then I get the paycheck. I'm like, wait, this is not that much.
Honestly, oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. So I guess you're in your 30s now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're a mom. So I guess what mindset, because I'm 29, I'm literally turning 30 this year. I'm so excited for it. Yes, literally. And it's so funny because if you had told me like a few years ago that I'd be excited to turn 30, I'd be like, what? No, but I'm like literally so lit up about it.
But 30s, honestly, 30s is where it's at. Like 30s, I'm not even gonna lie. 30s is where it's at.
Oh my gosh, I'm stoked. But I guess what mindset shifts have you had from your 20s to your 30s? And like, what's some advice you could give to someone who is kind of going through that transition?
So for me, I would say my time is just, I value my time just so much more than, I mean, that probably comes with just being more busy and having a family and everything. But like one thing that was I would say like a big difference between my 30s and my 20s is like, in my 20s, I'm a big DIYer. I do everything myself, whether it's my hair, my nails, my everything, right? Even my husband is the same way. Like if we can do it, we're going to do it ourselves. But I feel like in my 30s, I'm realizing that like sometimes paying somebody else to do it is actually cheaper. Because when you consider the value, my time, like how much value my time actually is, I'm like, I'm actually losing money doing like doing these braids myself. I'm losing money because I could be working on, pitching a brand or like working on a contract or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that has been really big for me. And just, and this year actually was when I was like, okay, I really need to like get a team. Right. So now I have like 3 people that I employ that help me with my business, whether it's like the community, with editing. And then I also have management that also helps me with all of my brand partnerships. So that has been one of like the best things that I've done for myself. Like not only has it helped my business, but it's helped my just mental health and well-being in general. It's just not feeling like you have to do everything yourself and trying to figure out like, what is worth you getting somebody else to do versus you doing it yourself. That's probably been like my biggest like mindset shift, is just valuing my time probably a lot more than I did back when I was in my 20s.
No, that's so fair. And it's so funny too, because like, so I told my mom, I finally got an assistant earlier this year, and I have like 2 full-time employees basically.
Awesome.
But she's, I've literally been telling my mom for years that she just needs to get an assistant. Like, you need to get an assistant, but she won't. And I think part of that does come from like the immigrant mentality a little bit as well. Because I know for me, it's like, no, I got this. I can do it myself. Don't worry about it. And then when I realized how much it was actually just like hindering me and preventing me from doing the things, like I remember when I got my first VA and my brain was clear. I was like, oh my gosh, I have time on my hands. I could do so many different things. This is incredible. And I think it's just like realizing that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to get help.
Yep. It really is, honestly. It's been a game changer for me. I really, honestly, I wish I did it much, 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 much earlier. Like, I really, so I would advise, if, like you ask for advice, if you're kind of in my shoes, if you're starting out, especially if you're an entrepreneur, like really try to hire, like, because you can't do everything yourself, or you shouldn't do everything yourself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then I guess one like question too, just about content creation. So I know you were saying that like brand partnerships, for example, isn't necessarily the most lucrative way to go. And a lot of people kind of see those brand partnerships and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I guess for you, what is like a better route for anyone who is wanting to get started in content creation? What's something you would recommend for them? What is like the lucrative path, I guess? Well, and that's kind of a loaded question because, it all kind of depends. But
no, it's a really good question. So I would say brand partnership is very lucrative. I don't want to get that mixed up. It's just not the most sustainable way to run your business, right? Like you can't just rely on, only brand partnership, because just like, oil and gas industry, sometimes the beauty industry or just like the commodity industry in general, it goes ups and downs. Sometimes brands have budgets, sometimes they don't, you know what I mean? So like, and sometimes like what we're seeing right now where there's just a lot of creators and a lot of creators willing to do things for a lot cheaper than maybe you are willing to do things, right? So there's so many variables that go into working with brands. And so I would say if you're starting out, I honestly would not have that as like your biggest like priority. Your biggest priority as a starting creator really should be building community, like building your loyal and not just followers. Followers is great, but like actual community, like people who want to hear what you have to say, people who will, believe what you say, people who want recommendations from you, things like that, because that is really where the value is in this space. It's the community. It's not the brand deals. It's not the, popularity. It really is like the community that you build. And so that would kind of be, my advice. And in terms of when you're starting out, making sure that you are posting consistently, right? Because you can't get better at creating content if you don't put work into it, if you don't do it a couple times and figure out what you're not good at, right? Figure out what you are good at. Figure out what your community wants from you, or figuring out like the best value that you have to give to your community. So like I said, with the way I started, the way a lot of successful creators started, it was not because they're like, oh, I want to make money. They were doing it because they already had the passion for it. They had the knowledge about what they were talking about. And I think that is honestly the best way to grow a very organic and real community that you can later on, monetize and, get those brand deals. And then when you do get to a point where, let's say you do have a community and you are getting brand deals, at that stage, you really want to start thinking about diversifying, right? Seeing how you can make money out of your community by giving value to your community, whether it's creating like a community that I have, which is creator community, where I'm helping other creators learn how to get into the business, or, if you have a certain like specialty that you have knowledge on, creating a community around that, like you have, right? And also, digital products is another way of diversifying your income as a creator. And, some people end up creating actual products, right? Like let's say you're a skincare influencer or creator and you just really have a passion for skincare, coming up with your own skincare line. That's another way. I mean, we've seen one of like the biggest beauty creators that a lot of people know about, Jackie Aina, right? So she obviously started out YouTube. At the point when she started, she wasn't making money from YouTube. Obviously, she grew her following, started making the brand deals, and now she has like her own product line and things like that. So I think that's kind of the way, people coming into this space should view this business, is just cast a wider lens and not just focus on like what is glamorous and what looks good in terms of like, oh, I have 1 million followers and things like that, but more of like, I actually have a community that values what I'm saying. And then from there, you can start getting all those other things.
Completely. And I think like a big thing too is just sharing the journey, right? Like, because people have seen you since 2012, 2013, right? They've seen you go through all your stages. And oh my gosh. And so like literally like diehard fans who have been, and that's what I love so much about your community. Like you can see all the engagement on every single post. Like people are so invested in your whole journey. And that's where the real value is. And and if you are like later on thinking about brand partnerships, that's what they're going to see, right?
Yeah. And brands know that brands actually, and especially now where it's more competitive, brands, at least the smart brands, they're not just looking at numbers as they used to before. They're looking to see if like your community actually, trust you, and they're looking to see your engagement rates and seeing how many comments you get. And, people are asking for your recommendations in the comments. Things like that mean a lot more than having a viral video. That's another whole discussion, the whole virality thing. Oh my God. I feel like TikTok was like, it shifted so many things. It really did.
I know that's for a whole different time.
Yeah, TikTok shifted the whole creator industry.
Oh my gosh. No, that is so true. Well, Tolani, now we're going to go into the 3 final interview questions that I ask every single person that comes on the show.
Okay.
So number 1, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Oh. My ideal perfect day.
Yes.
My ideal perfect day would be absolutely no work. Just like hanging out with my kids during the day, maybe going out for like, I don't know, ice cream or something fun for them. Yeah. They're like obsessed with anything sugar. So doing that. And then coming home, honestly, I'm a homebody. Like I really don't. That's another shift from my 20s to my 30s. I love staying at home. So like coming back home and maybe, I don't know, just chilling on the couch, watching TV. And then the kids go to bed and then I do my puzzle. I listen to my audiobook and just, that's like my perfect.
I love that. I love that.
So boring.
No, but it goes back to, right, like we glamorize the, events and the trips and all of that. But it's like for most people at the end of the day, like their perfect day is so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple. And it's to remember, like, it's always good to be chasing goals and stuff like that, but also take a step back and realize like what you really want in life is really so simple.
Honestly, it's so simple. Just my puzzle, my audiobook.
I love that. Okay, question number 2. What is your mantra? Or just something that you tell yourself all the time?
I'm one of those people who just like, I really believe that I can do whatever I want to do if I just put like work into it. Like I believe that anything is possible. Like I don't put any boundaries on myself. I'm not like, oh, I don't see someone and be like, oh, I don't think I could ever be in that space. I feel like I can do anything I want to do. It's just a matter of like deciding what it is and putting the work towards it.
I love that. And I think that I will say that is a trait that you have to have as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because there are people who really don't have that, like, and it's not that they can't learn it, but like they don't innately like have that trait. And I'm like, girl, you're not going to survive if you don't believe that you can do it,
Yeah. And honestly, just to share like one quick little, I don't know, tip or advice for people who like maybe lack that like self-confidence or whatever. I think one of the best ways to grow kind of that mentality is just like having the practice of just doing what you said you're going to do, right? Like having goals or having things that you want to do and then actually doing it. I feel like over time, whenever you start doing what you said you were going to do, you kind of build that like confidence. Like, hey, I said I was going to do this and I did it. So I can do anything, that kind of thing. So that's just a little advice for any of those out there, like maybe suffering with that side of like their self-confidence in this space.
I love that. And I even tell people just like write down your goals, even if you don't look at them for years. You're going to go back and look at them and there has to be at least one thing on your goals list that you actually did. And you'll look back and be like, oh my gosh, I actually did that.
I'm like huge believer in I write down I have like on my desk right now, I have 1, 2, 3 different notebooks. Like I'm a believer in writing down. I wrote down even like, when I was working at Chevron, I remember I had a journal, like I wrote down all of my goals. And then like you said recently, well, maybe sometime last year, I remember I found that book and I was looking at everything. And I think every single thing on there like actually happened, in one way or another, or even better than what I thought. So yeah, I huge believer in writing down what you want to do, writing down your goals.
I love that. Okay, last question. What does wealth mean to you?
Oh, wealth for me, I feel like just means like, the word that's coming to my head is like contentment, but in more of the way of like, just, it's not, to me, wealth is not like necessarily money per se. It's just like you said, like the simple things, like having the ability to, number one, like do the simple things without having worry right? I think that maybe that's why I'm thinking of contentment, because it's like just not having to worry about things, maybe because of money, right? But just having that peace. Maybe that's the better word. Peace.
I love that. I love that.
Wealth to me is peace. Just like having peace of mind, not having like health issues, not having money issues, having people around you that you love, and having the ability to, have free time to do the things that you love. That's what wealth, I think, for me is, just peace.
No, that is amazing. I absolutely love that. Tolani, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was wonderful. I know you're going to inspire so many. I know you were big on all the socials with are you at you're 90K on Instagram, 30K on YouTube?
On my road to 100K.
Yes, girl. So I guess where can people find you?
Well, I'm Tolani AV everywhere. So it's my name, Tolani, and then AV at the end. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook, Pinterest, obviously Instagram, YouTube, literally everywhere.
I love it. Well, Thank you so much, Tolani. This was amazing.
You're so welcome. I enjoyed my time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally anyone off of the street. Right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.